Ah,
Yeah. So you were talking about, how in Tamil Nadu the BJP is making an impact, right? And the AIDMK is completely collapsed. Even now, I'm hearing a lot of internal rumblings going on, and they're considering whether they should go back with Paneerselvam or not. So now I have to ask a slightly celebrity-related question. You know, given that Vijay is making his political entry in 2026, and given that there is visible anti-incumbency against the DMK, and it's been proven that both the ADMK and the BJP are not able to translate that into seats, do you think he has a much better chance? Because that's the first thing that came to my mind when I saw the vote shares and the seat shares, and the fact that you're telling there's a lot of polarization against the BJP itself. So if Vijay were to efficiently campaign, would he be able to make a significant electoral impact?
frankly, right, in Tamil Nadu, there has been off late, right? Till 2024, there has always been a committed vote bank for both Dravidian parties.
Yeah,
Okay, even someone who was very huge and popular as Vijaykanth, right? So he was almost number two. Okay, he was not a second rung star.
yeah,
Vijaykanth was almost in on along there with along with there with Rajni and Kamal. Okay? So
yeah,
even he was not able to get more than 10 to 12% votes that time.
mm,
Now that we don't have huge stalwarts like Karunanidhi and Jayalalitha here, of course there
mm,
is some amount of a political vacuum, no
yeah,
doubt about that. And even now, the vote percentage that is going to the ADMK, they have got almost 20% vote this time.
yeah,
That again belongs to MGR. It's not something MGR, of course, Jayalalitha. It- People here are like how they vote in Bengal. Bengal too, right? If they choose, if they are fixed with a particular political party, they don't shift loyalties right away.
yeah,
They are very slow in moving towards a new alternative. So
yeah,
as such, even if Vijay comes in, right, he will be able to get 10% vote. And again,
right.
he's a big hit only with the millennials. And again,
Are you sure?
people,
Are you
yeah,
sure?
yeah. See,
His
yeah, that is what
movie
I'm saying.
openings
There
are
is
insane. He is
no,
the
no, no,
only
no, no. The
star who
reason
has
why I'm saying
surpassed
this, right,
Rajnikant.
right, right. The reason why I'm saying this
Yeah,
is because we are traditionally been Dravidian supporters. We have been Dravidian, so we have either voted for the DMK or the ADMK. Of
yeah,
course, he might get a great opening, but it doesn't mean that it is going to translate into votes. So the
right.
same thing would have happened to Rajnikant, and that's precisely why he didn't come. Yeah, Rajinikanth was extremely popular at least 10 to 15 years back. In 2016,
Yeah,
during Kabali, right? He was very
yeah,
old. He could have
yeah,
made he could have made his entry to politics. That was the he was at the peak of his popularity, and then he started declining.
yeah,
But again, he was not. He was very sure that he's going to lose elections. He might would have got some 5 to 10% votes max. Maybe he would have won his own assembly seat. So Vijay is still a very early phenomenon. It remains to be seen whether the ADMK revitalizes itself and whether it is going to come back, which I'm
yeah,
not writing off at all, given the extreme popularity of MGR still with the masses. If you look at the recent trends in movie releases, right? Even now, MGR movies are getting proper openings in Tamil Nadu. We still have people flocking to watch his films.
and Gimme
So
is like the highest opener even after 20 years. So
true, true, true. True, I give that, but I'm not writing off ADMK at all. Now they looked a bit of collapsed here and there, but I think that Edapadi might do something to. I mean, he might of course bring in TTV. He might bring in Paneerselvam, and I
yeah,
still think that by the end of 2026, right?
yeah,
DMK governments have always had a reputation of tarnishing their reputation
yeah,
every time, right? At the end of the term, they always get vanquished. So this time also, I'm not writing off that possibility because they have. It's very clear now that in the real estate areas, right? BJP, I mean, sorry, DMK's party men as well as Stalin's whom relatives are actually making a killing out of that sector. They are not allowing other players in, and this is precisely what happened in 2011 as well. So I'm very sure that by the end of this term, Stalin would not be able to retain the good name he has earned for himself. And ADMK has very much a possibility to come back. And when Vijay is making an entry, I will just give him some 70-30 chance. I mean, 30, 70 against him, 30 in favor of him. Again, he'll definitely not be able to make form a government. He will
Yeah,
be at least able to win 10 to 15 seats max. That's what
right.
I'm giving him. Uh, yeah.
Yeah. So, talking about movie stars.
I want to
Yeah,
quickly just make one point. Sorry,
yeah,
sorry. Just quickly, it's very interesting word that Jiva mentioned West Bengal because I had been to Kolkata in 2018, so already people were talking about elections.
yeah,
And at the time, it was like what he said about Tamil Nadu after Raman Mandir, was inaugurated. People would cautiously make statements that would be leaning pro Modi, not like Jai Modi, her Modi type, but if you read between the lines, they're saying that this is the direction the nation should go in. But
yeah,
it ultimately did not translate into
yeah,
seats for them, at least not the way they were expecting. And the same is this case here. So yeah, they're both very polarized states and like very hardcore on their political choices. They don't budge easily compared to some states. That's like only point I want to make.
yeah. So, if you take the seats that the BJP has lost, right? They've lost predominantly, I mean, shockingly in UP, they've lost 13. Maharashtra, they've got wiped out. So, since Madan is from Maharashtra, he was from Mumbai. Do you think what does this bode for the assembly election, firstly? And what do you think
Yeah, so
this establishes?
yeah, so I that's what I said that had I been here in Mumbai during election season, I would have got a very clear uh, view on how this is going to pan out, especially because Mumbai is a stronghold of so-called Uddhav Sena. It is,
Yeah,
if I could look at the elections, I would say that Maharashtrians are telling them that there is no Uddhav Sena and Shinde Sena. There is only one Shiv Sena. It is the one that, you see, actually, people were not very favorably disposed towards Uddhav Thackeray's leadership earlier until he stumbled into the job when this whole thing happened. Like, he wanted to be CM and Fadnavis said nothing doing Pune Beach, all that. And, then Ajit Pawar defected back to the, Mahayuti and then they formed the government. And then his leadership in Corona was so exemplary
yeah,
that actually, you know, changed my hearts and people actually started liking him. And I would include myself in that group because his style was this antithesis of what we were getting from Fadnavis was like roaming around doing Danka Bajao or giving like long big speeches. He was, I don't know if you were following, he used to give these monologues on Facebook Live. And they were very, very like matter of fact, and he would tell you like exactly like what his plans are, and also try to keep motivating people to do the right thing, this social distancing, everything. And I remember again during the second wave, like Fadnavis was repeatedly like trying to blackmail him against imposing the lockdown. And he bucked the pressure and did it. And then within a few days, the entire country had to start imposing lockdowns
yeah,
statewide again. So he was proved right.
yeah,
And then, what you do is instead of just waiting till the next election, where you could have had a big victory again, you decide that you're not going to wait that this guy's, he's getting good, so he's dangerous. So you decide to break the pact. And then you also join with Ajit Pawar. So Ajit Pawar actually has a very, very negative reputation in Maharashtra.
yeah,
Even now, people were like, when they saw that, people said Ajit Pawar and they laughed, in some WhatsApp group. Then somebody asked, what did he do? Did he again go and urinate in a jam? Because he had made that statement once in 2014 that, you know, if you're not getting water, what should I do? Should I urinate in a jam? And then you will drink that. This is actually said.
wow,
So,
okay,
so he has a very negative reputation. People only tolerated him because he's part of Sharad Pawar's party.
yeah,
Otherwise, in his own right, nobody likes him. So when
right,
BJP tries to now, if BJP had only had Eknath Shinde on their side, maybe it would have still been okay because ideologically that alliance would have been consistent.
yeah,
Now, if you're saying that Ajit Pawar is also part of your party, and then Ashok Chauhan,
yeah,
another like again a guy about whom people have very negative opinions. you're like, so then it's like your alliance also now has lost clarity. And
Yeah.
compared to that, at least Uddhav was very smart. See, he joined as such with the alliance. Just give me a minute, please.
Yeah.
I'm just having the so come. What is it?
One second,
The
let me just restart.
alliance of
Yeah. Yeah.
hello.
It's
Yeah.
it's recording
So
now.
as I was saying that the alliance of BJP also now lost ideological clarity,
Yeah.
and Uddhav was very smart, like he aligned with the India alliance. But when Kharge made very strong statements against Savarkar, he immediately said that I do not accept this. So he was like, and that is like the typical like Maratha attitude. Now, whether you like Savarkar or not, it is immaterial. Shiv Sena is always associated with Savarkar. So he
Yeah.
was like, I draw my line there. Now, if you need me in your alliance, then you have to put up with that. So, I think all that made a very good impression that they thought of Uddhav as the guy who has a strong character.
Yeah.
But I want to bring in another thing. If you look at the numbers, it's Congress which has done
Yeah. It's
brilliantly
done.
in
Yeah.
Maharashtra in its own right. This is
Yeah.
something people need to get to the root of because we had almost written off the Congress in Maharashtra. First, they
Yeah.
became the junior partner of NCP, and then
Yeah.
they were wiped out in 2019. Where has that comeback come from? That is something that we need to look into. Is it only a function of the alliance, and therefore that people decided that okay, if they wanted to vote for NCP Sharad Pawar, but the Congress candidate was standing in that constituency, then they were going to vote for Congress? Or is Congress making a revival in the state again? Because
Yeah.
if that is happening, then that is bad news for BJP because Congress used to be historically very, very strong in Maharashtra
Yeah.
at one time,
Especially
all
the
the way
rural
until
belt.
Vilasrao Deshmukh,
Especially the rural belt.
especially the rural bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, after Deshmukh, their chapter kind of ended. But
Yeah.
are they making a comeback? We should look into that.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't checked the Maharashtra numbers for Prime Minister, but I sort of suspect we'll see something similar to UP. I remember there was a speech that Modi was giving in Maharashtra in a rural belt, I think, and at some point the farmers in unison started shouting, "Talk about onions," and he was just stuck there standing. He didn't know what to say because I think the onion exports were banned or something by then.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I'm sure we haven't gotten the analysis yet, but I also feel like there's a certain farmer backlash to the BJP, right? And this is, even as soon as he came back from the second term, the farm protests went on for a year or so, even in lockdown. And then there's been widespread distress, rural distress in areas. Do you think this is really the farmer backlash election?
Uh,
Yes, yes. And I think that is where you have the strongest parallels to 2004. Even in
Yeah,
2004, the urban belt voted for BJP, the NDA, but the farmer belt went against. And that is exactly what seems to happen this time too.
yeah,
That they are just stuck with a raw deal. We are reading about farmer suicides again.
yeah.
So, in that sense, it's not surprising that they
no, no,
decided that, yeah. Yeah, I
Madan,
think Jiva wants to say something.
yeah, Madan, as you said, right? I think after Modi came to power, the government had stopped making records of farm suicides, and
Yes,
that's why we
yes,
have
Mhm.
not heard of it. The farm suicide record was going on from I think 2000s, early 2000s, and till 2016 or 17, they were the National Crime Records Bureau was making note of them. But afterwards, they had stopped doing it because there was an explicit order from the government to stop shaming government on that. And, to give some proletarian angle to that, right? So this when it comes to elections, people are not very ideologically complicated. They keep it very simple. Whether
yeah,
the government is going to benefit them or not, whether the most poor people are concerned about welfare. It's not that they are against neoliberalism. They think that if this government is going to give me a handout, if it is going to give me a freebie, then I'm very much inclined to vote for them. Again, that's not the only reason. That's not the only
yeah,
deal breaker here. But this kind of, I mean, see, every government at the center from 1991 has been pro-business.
True.
consciously. Okay, I'm saying it in a very neutral way, but the big business elite has always pushed the government to move towards the right. They have always argued for removing restrictions, removing regulations, and most importantly, the big business elite has championed the cause of allowing the market to enter into education, food, and health. Okay,
Yeah.
so in the first two sectors, like education and health, the big business has somehow succeeded. They have made some amount of inroads. But when it comes to food, right, the government procurement still is more than 50%. The government still procures more than 50% of the country's agricultural output. So that is precisely where the Adanis and Ambanis are bargaining hard for. They want these farm laws so bad that they want the government to exit out of these price setting mechanisms. They really want them to be they really want the markets to determine the price. And when they are using the word market, they obviously refer to themselves. They want
Yeah.
themselves to fix the prices.
Yeah.
So, and this kind of, and in every government at the center has on a very broad manner, like they have always been anti-farmer. They really want the farm sector to go to those who are funding them. They want the big Adanis or Ambanis or whoever it may be. They
Yeah.
really want some kind of how the Walmart has completely taken over agriculture in US. They really want that kind of system to prevail here. So they have been pushing the government, and every government, including the Manmohan Singh government, they have also tried hard to somehow get the PDS away. They don't really want the public distribution system to continue. They have, but what the problem is, every year we have an election, we have a state election. So this is a very huge check on the influence of the big business on the political class. So it has always been a pull and push. So it's in Marxian terms we call it dialectics. So one side the big business is pulling for pro market reforms. On the other side, people don't want these controls to go away. They want welfare to continue. They want freebies to continue. They want what do you call the minimum support prices to continue. So, of course, there were 5 lakh farmers who protested against the farm laws. Even though the movement did not go nationwide, I expected all other, farmers from other states to join them, but it did not happen. But when it comes to voting, right? Especially, I read that even farmers in Uttar Pradesh have voted against the BJP.
Yeah.
I think so
And
that has also played a
with
role.
UP, there's a specific issue. It's called Pashu. What is that? Avara Pashu,
Uh,
I think, where
right,
because the Yogi Adityanath government has put such strong restrictions on cattle being sold or
right.
has banned beef consumption, a lot of these old cows and buffaloes, they're just being let out on the street. And what these animals are doing, they're entering the farms and they're just destroying the produce. And this issue is there even in 2022, but it just didn't come out the way that it came out now.
Mm, right. Yeah, that's the point I wanted to make.
Yeah,
Before joining this discussion, I just wanted to add this point because I don't think that this reform versus anti-reform debate has not gone away from Indian politics at all. We are still People are still voting based on economic angle. People are still voting for welfare. People are still voting for some amount of socialism.
yeah,
They still want governments to regulate the markets. They still want governments to give them something.
yeah,
Uh, and I think I was actually afraid that people have stopped ignoring it. When I saw the 2019 elections, the subsequent elections where the BJP kept winning, right? I was kind of worried that people are not worried about prices. Actually, we are selling petrol at 100 and 110 rupees. I thought,
yeah,
so I was like, okay, you can get away with anything. You can get away with any kind of anti-poor measure. I was actually getting worried about it. People still keep voting for the BJP despite huge across the board price rises. I was actually worried, but this election has again reminded me that elections are still fought on economic issues. That the poor still have the uh, still have the only way of securing their lives. They're still making use of elections. They are using elections as a lever to pull back the governments from going completely pro-market, pro-right. That's a huge observation I want to make here.
That's a fantastic set of points, but let me just add Andhra Pradesh as a counter because I'm from Andhra, I know the place better. Jagan Mohan Reddy went all out with freebies. He spent 2.7 lakh crores in direct benefit transfers for a state that is nearly bankrupt. He
Right.
and and his schemes, I must admit, though I didn't like them, they were pretty important. He was giving money for school going children, he was giving money for women, and yet today he's got 10 seats out of 175. He doesn't even qualify for main opposition. Pavan Kalyan's party qualifies for main opposition. And think 10 seats with 40% vote share.
Right.
And I was checking, I had a suspicion, but when I checked CSDS, I got it confirmed. Jagan's party won 6 out of every 10 people in the poor,
Oh.
but they lost more than half of the middle class. They didn't win any votes from the rich. So,
Oh.
though, so he essentially, we might have seen the first class polarized elections in India with Andhra,
Okay.
because
Correct.
that is,
Great observation.
Interesting.
imagine you're winning 40% of the vote, but you're still
Yeah.
getting 10 seats. That is a very shocking result. That means and the people have solidified on class lines, they voted you out. And other thing with Andhra was, right, this is very ironic. So when BJP had allied with TDP, there was a fear that Babu would lose this because the Muslim vote would consolidate against anyone who's BJP. But in AP, there are only three Muslim MLAs. All three are with the TDP today.
Okay. Okay.
And Chandrababu Naidu went out in public. He came to my hometown, and in a public meeting, he was like, "I will not touch reservation. I will not let anything anti-minority happen." And if you see his manifesto, he's promised free Hajj trips. He's promised a Hajj house. He's promised salaries
Okay.
for Maulanas and Muftis. And right now, he's the guy who's like the fulcrum of the NDA.
Kingmaker.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
kingmaker.
yeah, yeah.
So
That's
yeah,
going to be very interesting.
I
Yeah.
mean, he won't fulfill it. Chandrababu Naidu is never known to fulfill his welfare schemes. I think
Mm.
even people know that, and still they voted him in. But
Mm.
Andhra just got very lucky after 10 years. Like 10 years, no capital, no special status, just an element of self, inferiority that people had.
So,
And yeah,
yeah, so I want to ask about that because, I am sure that taking Hyderabad away from Ankara had a massive impact on the state's finances. So can you talk about that? Because this unfortunately is
yeah,
not discussed very much in the media, which I could, from being from the south, although I'm, based out of Mumbai or was based out of Mumbai, but
yeah,
being from the south, I could see that this is actually a very big issue. And
yeah,
that's why Naidu must be asking again and again for the special status.
yeah. So what happened
No,
with
no,
Hyderabad?
Aman,
Yeah,
one
tell
minute.
me.
Aman,
Yeah,
I also have another question to you.
yeah,
Please add that to a list of Madans, okay? So I
yeah.
want to know why did YSRCP lose this election? So
Okay.
despite
So this is
performing
like
well
a
on welfare.
very long thing. Okay. So, Andhra essentially rose because I believe it essentially aligned with any party that is in the center. It was like the bellwether state. So in
Okay.
91, when Narasimha Rao won, they won in Andhra. And NTR famously didn't field a candidate against Narasimha Rao because he was the Telugu Prime Minister. In 96, when Vajpayee came to power, Chandrababu Naidu was again the kingmaker in the United Front. In NDA, when Babu aligned with NDA, again, Andhra had, a prime position. He was the guy who actually proposed APJ Abdul Kalam as the president.
Mm.
2004, the ultimate example of farmer backlash and farmer suicide was YSR's return to power, and Andhra was like offered 30 seats out of the hundreds that the Congress had. In fact, the only place where Congress gained a lot of seats was in AP. Nine again, he managed to get 33 out of 200. So when YSR died, and YSR died very stunningly, right? Like it was the first political event I remember in my life. After I saw
Right.
Chiranjeevi, like the amount of grief, the amount of shock AP went into, I don't think has ever been paralleled anywhere else. What happened also was that YSR was the main funder of the Congress. Most of the money the
Mm.
Congress got came from AP. So YSR's death and the fact that these rival factions try to like pull Jagan down made Congress lose a lot of its funding, which is why you see a lot of chaos that happened in UPA too. And also, Jagan went against the Congress, so the Telangana statehood movement came up out of nowhere. Like literally, KCR was finished in 2009. As soon as YSR died, the movement came back. The Congress thought they would split Telangana and Andhra. They could get some of the seats in Telangana. The rumor is that KCR promised to merge his party into the Congress. Why Miss Gandhi believed that, I have no clue till date. And they thought they would win some of the seats in Andhra. But what happened? They didn't win in Telangana. They were wiped out in Andhra. Jagan could have won in 2014 itself, but Chandrababu very smartly aligned with Modi and more importantly with Pawan Kalyan. And Pawan Kalyan ran this high voltage campaign in Andhra in that particular year. He and his popularity made sure that they won a majority. But since the Modi government had a majority on its own, they didn't really care about AP. They didn't care about giving money. They didn't care about the Polavaram project. In fact, even now it is said that 20,000 crores of Andhra Pradesh government property is still in Hyderabad, and we didn't get our money from there. So, and 2019 again, there was massive anger against Babu because he didn't build the capital that he promised to. He showed Singapore and all, and there was nothing there. And Jagan was able to push the special status issue, and he won. But again, Modi had a majority. Jagan had major cases, so he couldn't push Modi again. And with Jagan, what happened? He didn't talk about Amaravati in his election campaign at all. In fact, he supported Amaravati when the assembly resolution came up. What he does, because Amaravati is dominated by Naidu's community, he says, I'm not going to make Amaravati the capital. I'm going to make Kurnool the legislative, I think, judicial capital. So he's going to keep the High Court there. He's going to make Amaravati the legislative capital, and he's going to make Vizag the executive capital, which on face value is ridiculous. It's downright Tughlaq. And
Right.
to add to that, he never actually implemented it because he didn't have the money. He didn't have the money to build anything because he was giving so much money in freebies. In AP, when you're rolling out roads, right, they're not using that machine. They're literally bringing oil barrels, they're heating the tar, and they're just throwing it on the road.
Okay.
So he literally completely ignored infrastructure development. So what happened, and he also went out of his way to target Chandrababu Naidu. There were like extreme personal remarks made against him. Like imagine a leader of his legacy sitting in assembly, and someone asks him, "Are you really the father of your son?" And then he got arrested, and it just swept
Yeah.
away. Like no one expected it. But and also there was this thing with liquor where Jagan took over the liquor system in AP and is only serving two brands, and both of them were horrid, extremely terrible alcohol. So there was also that backlash against him.
Get that? Yeah, I get that.
Yeah. So it really shows how welfareism cannot be a winning formula. Like it is really like a perfect case study of what can happen if you just ignored everything and just went on welfare.
Yeah, I think it's push and pull, as Jiva put it.
Yeah.
You have to create jobs. The state economy has to flourish, and
Yeah.
at the same time, it cannot flourish in a way that is so unequal that the poor feel left out, and then they're like,
Right.
okay, I will go to whoever gives me money because I need to feed my stomach. It has to
Yeah.
be a balance always.
Right.
You can't go too extreme in one direction, then that
Yeah.
ultimately doesn't work beyond
Yeah, yeah.
a short period of time.
Exactly. The point I was trying to make, I was making a very broad point. Okay. I'm saying that
Yeah.
it is a very important, welfare is a very important factor. I'm not saying that it is the only important.
Mhm.
Yeah. And
Absolutely, absolutely.
talking about class politics, right, the CPM has made a comeback in Rajasthan. They won a seat in Rajasthan.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
won a seat.
Even I was shocked.
Yeah, yeah. They're like, that joke about what's a polar bear doing in Arlington, Texas? It's literally like that with the CPM now.
Yeah. It's
So
like that.
do you think that the CPM, the communist parties, the left parties might be making a comeback after this election?
Not
Or
at
have
all.
they already made that comeback?
No, no, they've done in only one seat, and that too again. I think they have had support from Congress for that MLA.
Yeah.
Mean, sorry, for that MP, right? He had
But
MP.
Mr.
some.
Gandhi is also going very much to the left, right? The Congress is at
Yeah,
its
true,
most
but
left
I
position it could
don't
be.
see that the communist parties are coming back. Maybe we
Yeah,
will have a new left kind of combination that again, I'm writing off the CPM and the CPI from the mainstream politics.
yeah.
They are going to, they are very much moribund, and I don't see them coming back. Maybe for another 20 years or so, they will retain their bases in Kerala. After that, they're going to go off from the limelight. I'm very sure about that.
The interesting thing is, BJP has won a seat in Kerala, and that too, like, Suresh Gopi might become a minister, which is just like I had a friend who asked me, he said, "Who is Suresh Gopi?" And I'm like, you know that creepy doctor in I.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, do you think, when it comes to the BJP, right? Do you think the reason why they're growing is because of the lack of electoral space that other parties are not offering? And maybe this is why secularism gets such a bad rep. Because you take, for example, Karnataka, the JDS and the Congress, they allied together despite them being enemies out of secularism. And that just opened electoral space for alternate voice. So do you think what parties should do is not allow electoral space? Especially in Bengal, I think that's what happened. The Communist Party did not ally with Mamta, and they were able to not give BJP the electoral space they deserved. So, Madan, Ji, what are your thoughts on
No,
that?
see, it all depends
Yeah.
upon the circumstances, right? Because
Yeah,
in Bengal, you should see how the TMC workers and left workers have clashed. Okay,
yeah, yeah,
yeah. So it's been a very bloody story, bloody history,
yeah,
and the same has happened between Congress and the CPM as well before the
yeah,
TMC had emerged, right? So
yeah,
Bengal politics has always been so violent. Even if assuming that we have a TMC left coalition there, you will not find workers from both parties going together. They would
yeah,
definitely not be able to accommodate each other. There is such a huge history. The same applies to Kerala as well. In Kerala too, you can't have Congress and be on the left aligning with each other. At least for now, it's not going to happen because both are very strong, but and
yeah,
they have a very a bloody history of violence between them. So that is not going to happen. And again, even now, I'm insisting on one point. Just like how Tamil Nadu was polarized between BJP and anti-BJP, the same is happening in Kerala as well. If you
yeah,
see, right, in today we have a CSDS Lokniti survey in Hindu.
yeah.
70% of Malayalis don't want the NDA to come back. I don't, I don't